Well, hello out there. Welcome to another episode of Bitcoin Generations, the show where we talk about bringing bringing Bitcoin to the new Bitcoiners and to the baby boomer Bitcoiners. So I'm joined again here by Jor. How are you doing today, Jor?
We're doing great here. We're doing great. It's if people are new here, we got some coffee today. I got a morning show in the morning. We got this afternoon show with Bodie, and on Fridays it's at 4. So I have a beer. So I kind of depending on what time it is of the day, but today is coffee. So we got to be dialed in for this. We got a good show, I think, today. We got really good conversation last week, and Bodie posted a clip of it talking about Bitcoin for business owners in terms of paying employees, and if you're an employee, how to get paid in Bitcoin, and a couple different tips and tricks on there. So if you haven't watched that yet, make sure to check out that. That's on the Bitcoin Generations YouTube channel, correct? Yeah, it's a clip.
Yeah,
7 minutes long. So anyways, no, things are good here, man. Things are good. I'm starting to get a little bit excited about what's going to happen next week. Excited / maybe a little anxious, but
it's coming. It's coming, right? What is that? Monday?
Mm-hmm.
Monday, the 20th of January, 2025. We've got Clean Your Machine. Hello from Alberta. Well, hello, Clean Your Machine. Hello from the US and Canada.
And Manitoba.
You know, George, this is really an international collaboration we have going here. You know that, right?
It is, yeah, and it's. I mean, for the last 8 years here, we've been. I mean, and beyond that, but even though I'm not in the U.S., I still pay very close attention to the U.S. politics because it has a pretty big impact on not only just like the economy here, but like society itself. And I think that that's the one thing that I've noticed since Trump won the election in November is just a sense of like, I don't know if it's relief or just like people can kind of relax a little bit. It just seemed like we had a whole lot of years and time and where people were scared to open their mouths about anything. And it's very unsettling to me. And I'm glad that we kind of pushed through that, but it wasn't easy. That's for sure.
That's for sure. I love the international collaboration, right? I mean, I think one thing we learned through the last 4 years, and we say the last 4 years, it was much longer than that. Anybody who's been awake, right? But one thing we learned is that people have, if you're honest with somebody and it depends on how you have a spirit of good or evil. I mean, it kind of comes through. So if people are interested in like working together and doing business together and collaborating together, that kind of becomes apparent. And I think one of the things we learned is that people are kind of like that all over the world. It seems like, it doesn't matter, how you look, what you do, and we saw that really, with the truckers. And, I've never been able to publicly say this, but because I didn't have a forum before, but I mean, Americans were horrified with what those guys went through. We were absolutely just, I mean, those of us who were awake and paying attention, like we know that the truckers make stuff happen. They get stuff done. And there's other lines of people in lines of work that get stuff done too. But I mean, that was part of the wake up call, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so maybe for those who, and I mean, being in Canada myself, like I had a couple different experiences with that. But the thing for me is that until you actually, like I had the pleasure of kind of being part of that convoy for a little while by accident almost. And I just remember that was a feeling that I will never forget because the government intentionally made us feel like we were alone through that whole thing. They tried to make us stay at home, stay away from our offices, separate from our coworkers. At Christmas, we weren't allowed to gather. So they really wanted to isolate people. And that was very intentional, I think, depending on how you look at the whole thing. I mean, I'm guessing you can tell how I feel about it, but so it was very powerful for me, and it was something I'll be forever grateful for. I think it woke up a lot of people in Canada here. There's a lot of really good Bitcoiners here, probably come from that. But the other thing too is that a lot of Canadians didn't really realize the implications of that in terms of a lot of people in my life. They were actually thought that the truckers were kind of like crazy. They thought that like it was an insult to Canadians, but to protest your government. So it was a totally different perspective here in Canada versus how the rest of the world viewed it, because everybody else saw it as like this bright shining light of like these guys standing up to their government, and that's how I saw it too. But in my circles and in my network, it was like people were like, "Oh, those guys are like the Freedom." They were calling them like the Freedom Convoy because, again, it was like insulting that we would go against our own people.
Well, I remember this last summer we went up to Montana and we had a family reunion with some of my wife's family, who's from. She has members of her family from British Columbia, from Alberta, Manitoba, and some of the well, I think they're the ones that we're talking about this part were from Manitoba, but we just briefly mentioned, I think the topic came up of the convoy or the truckers, in Ottawa, and I was it was let me just say it was decidedly, the demographic there on her family was decidedly more kind of not the kind of, um, I guess they were left or whatever you wanna call it, but I just, I'm interested in having conversation, but I didn't want it to be, like this.
Yeah, yeah.
So
That's what they tried to do with it though, right? Yeah.
yeah, I'm doing a lot of listening, and as I'm listening, this topic came up. I didn't bring it up, but I was listening, and this topic came up about the convoy in Ottawa, and so one of the wives of one of the guys that was there, she said, "I just thought it was horrible that they were blocking the streets and people couldn't even go to work, in Ottawa," and I was like, "Yeah, mm, that must have been rough." But I mean, what's the bigger play, right? The bigger thing that was going on there wasn't even being covered really. It's just that logistics, and boy, aren't these truckers really manipulating the situation? They're jamming up everything, and that was the narrative. So anyway, uh,
I think that it's important. I just want to say that we're also on Zapstream right now, so I see there's a couple people over in Zapstream today. So hello, Zapstream. But
hello, Zach.
the other thing with that is, yeah, SD says 100% agree. Media was making the truckers look like the enemy, and that's the vibe that I got here from people, is that they didn't really understand what was happening there. And I think that the way this ties into Bitcoin is that the people who were protesting, the people who were organizing a way to fund the truckers, to keep the truckers in Ottawa because they weren't working at the time. That's what caused the whole protest, is that they weren't allowed to cross the border unless they had the medical procedure in their arm. And so they just said, you know what, this isn't right. We're standing together here. We're going to stay in Ottawa until this is settled. And so the people, like the people who were supporting them from all around the world, were sending in money. And the Canadian government actually enacted an Emergency Measure Act, or an Emergency Act, and started freezing people's bank accounts. And so what ended up happening there was that people started sending in Bitcoin. And I think that the majority of the funds that were received were actually all frozen in terms of bank accounts. And there was a percentage of the Bitcoin that was actually frozen because one of the companies gave away the information, or they froze it, or they cooperated with the government. But I think it was about 70 or 80% of the Bitcoin actually ended up going to the truckers. Like the government couldn't intervene there.
Yeah.
And that was such a big thing for Bitcoiners. And that's why it was such a big thing on the world stage, is because people were sending in money and the government could freeze that. They had access to freeze the bank accounts.
Right.
But when you're talking about Bitcoin, the government has no ability to freeze that, which was pretty powerful.
Yep. And that's, pardon me, that is a key takeaway, is that we need to remember that the government, we don't need to ask for permission to transact among each other. When we get to that point, I mean, you really need to kind of like pinch yourself and say, should I be asking for permission, or am I a mindless drone walking down this, to the street, to the cliff for the slaughter? I put this question up from or this topic up from Steven Schieffer here
Mm-hmm.
on our YouTube feed. I'm a millennial. My parents don't understand Bitcoin and are ignorant to even do a 5-minute research on what it is. And this is. I mean, if I've got a a soapbox to stand on here, this is it right here. I'll give you an example too, Stephen, of more than one financial advisor that I know that I've talked to about Bitcoin. Just kind of like, hey, what do you think about it, and what do you know about it? And the response is very short and very concise. It's negative,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, we don't understand it. It's something that's out there in the orb, and it's like, it's not in my wheelhouse. I cannot, I can't even figure it out. So let's just do that with, what do you do in other areas of your life when there's something you don't understand, but it might be beneficial to you to learn about it? Should you take 5 minutes to, maybe 5 hours if you're really interested in it? It doesn't take, you don't have to take your left arm. You don't have to take, a semester of your time to go to a college to learn something that could be taught in, 2 or 3 weeks. You can spend 5 minutes. You can spend an hour. You can spend 5 hours and really drill down into what is Bitcoin, what are the basics of it, and, I mean, George, speak to that for a second, because it's just, I'm flabbergasted about that. We can do this. We're not stupid.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, for me as what would I be, a millennial, I guess, similar to Steven here. Millennials, I would say two things, and I say this on my show quite often, is that people give baby boomers a pretty hard time in general, in terms of being being not lazy, but like, how come you guys aren't doing anything about this? Like, the money's been broken for the last 50 plus years, and you guys are just kind of letting this happen. Because for the most part, baby boomers got pretty fortunate in terms of like getting a house. The inflation went up, their value of the house went up, and that's how a lot of the baby boomers now are holding their wealth, is in their house. That's where their main component of equity is. But the thing I would say on that is that baby boomers, I never say a bad word about baby boomers, because I understand what they went through. I understand the fact that when you're going through in a world where you have like 3 or 4 different sources of information, and I know we're very disconnected from that now, because we've had the internet for over 20 years now. For most people, over 20 years, we've had a decentralized way to find information. But prior to that, and when the baby boomers were kind of like, 20, 30, 40 years old and beyond, and into their, as children, they had about 3 or 4 sources of information. And that was the television, the newspaper, and radio. And whatever those 3 things told them, that's pretty much, and I guess libraries would be the 4th one in there, where you could actually go and find information from books. But that's basically the only way that baby boomers consumed information for the first 40, 50 years of their life, was from 4 main sources of media. And when the media is intentionally lying to you to push a narrative in terms of, this dollar is legitimate, there's nothing wrong here, everything's fine, trust the government, trust the big pharma, trust us. It's like baby boomers didn't have a choice here. For millennials, Gen Z, we have access to anything that we want now. And that's why people are finally going out of their way. That's why channels like this exist, because we can. Like this, nothing like this could have happened 20 years ago. So I don't fault baby boomers at all. I don't think that they had any sort of play or, intentions with that. It's just all they had to work with was what the media told them, those 3 or 4 sources of information. And it's tough. It's tough breaking out of that. And I can't relate to that because I haven't been in that system for that long, but it is a reality. We're born into a system. We don't know what the system is, just like a fish born in water. They don't know what's water. They don't know what water is. But it's so baby boomers, I think that it's not their fault. I think they've had a lot more years of programming. It's harder to break through that wall of keeping an open mind and actually seeking out, what can be, what would be considered alternative information. But it seems like people are starting to do that. And the people who are here today would be in that crew.
Yeah. We definitely, just so you know, if we have a technical difficulty, it's not, it's probably not on your end. It's probably on my end, and we'll
That's
we'll
okay.
work through that.
That's
Um,
okay.
just the interesting thing about, just talk about baby boomers, and look, we did have, newspapers, radio, TV, and later we had the internet. And so my message to the baby boomers is like, Stephen, if, we'll just kind of, for anyone, but especially who has somebody had like that in their lives, just remind the baby boomers and, the 89-year-olds or the 90-year-olds, I think they're still in the baby boom generation. Just remind them that, hey, remember when the internet came out? Everybody was a lot younger. In my generation, everybody was a lot younger when the internet came out. And it was like, oh no, this thing is like, ooh, that how do we, you would never dare put your credit card information
Yes.
on there. And oh, you're going to get rugged and it's going to be bad. Lot of misinformation, whatever you want to call it. But we learned that, hey, you know what? Hey, it wasn't so bad. You just have to like be smart if you're going to, buy something, make sure that, you use best practices, right? But it is something that could be learned. It is something that can be, you know, get enough exposure and, have somebody hold your hand. Like we said last week, have somebody in the driver's seat if you're a
Yeah,
new
I like
driver,
that.
or in the passenger seat, who's got they've got the brake on their side too. But this can be done. This can be done. Absolutely can be done by, by baby boomers. So let's not, dig our head in the sand and, be like, oh, I don't want to know that. I've got myself all set up. This is something you want to know about.
And I think it's important to kind of explain the fact that there's probably a bunch of different people watching this from different age groups, but I do want to give a couple shout outs here from Daniel. Zapped us 888 sats. Let's get the zaps rolling for Bodie Boomer.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Daniel.
And Letha mashed with 888 sats over on Zapstream. So thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Letha.
Letha. Yes,
very
Letha.
much
Thank
appreciate.
you. Much
But
appreciated.
the thing I would say on that is like there are going to be people of different generations watching the show. I think it's focused at baby boomers, but we want to make it applicable for anybody who's just trying to have a better understanding of Bitcoin. And so I think if you look at somebody who's, let's say, 20, 25, 30 years old, they're looking at this asset with a much different lens than somebody who's 60, 70, 80. The people who are 20, 30, in that area, the best thing that Bitcoin is going to do for you is you're going to be able to save your time and energy in the best battery that's ever existed before. And if you're saving your money and your time and your energy in a fiat system that they can devalue at any moment, and they're going to continue to devalue because they don't have any choice. There's no other option for the Federal Reserve, the financial overlords. Their only option going forward is to print more money. And every time they print more money, they devalue yours. And so if you're trying to save in that system, you're never, ever going to get ahead. You're not even going to beat inflation. No matter what the rate is, no matter what the stock return is, you're never going to beat inflation. And so Bitcoin, in that sense, is a way to maybe afford your first house, get a down payment on a house, because Bitcoin's working in a much different direction from that. So that's like the Gen Z, the people who are coming up, that's kind of how they see Bitcoin. But for the baby boomers, they're looking at this much differently. They already have a house. They already have assets. The young guys have nothing to lose here, honestly. Like, cause that road, there's nothing to lose for those guys and girls. But with baby boomers, they've been working their whole lives. They have capital. They have a house. And so it's a lot, they see it as much more risky. They don't want to lose that nest egg that they've been building for all these years. But
well,
yes, there is a but. But if they continue holding it in that system that's just going to continue to be devalued, it's like an ice cube and it's just melting. And so for baby boomers, I would say that Bitcoin is a way to store that value for the rest of your retirement and beyond. But plus, it's for your children and their children. Because if you look at those two roads of holding it in your savings account or your pension, that's going one way, it's going down, it's melting. Whereas Bitcoin's going the opposite direction. It's actually, the longer you hold it, the more you can buy with it. And so I'd say that those are kind of like the two main groups of people who are buying Bitcoin. And then somewhere between is like me, where I'm just like kind of in both sides. I'm still wanting to get some, a house or a a car or whatever in the future, but I'm also thinking far enough ahead for my generations too, my future generations. So
good. So good. Yeah, great information there. And I saw a question here. Is this George's dad? No, this isn't George's dad, but I don't
I
know
mean,
if
yeah, you're probably, my dad's 66 now, so you're probably within, a decade or so of him. So it's not too far of a stretch, but I mean, that's
yeah.
kind of the purpose of the show. It's for
Yeah,
baby
yeah.
boomers. My dad's a baby boomer, Bodie is, and that's who we want to be talking to here.
That's exactly right. And I'll tell you from my perspective, as a baby boomer, I will tell you that, I've owned, several houses. I've built a house. A lot of different, pitfalls you can fall into. You can leverage. You can get a second mortgage on your house and get deeper into debt. You can really kind of go down that rabbit hole. But from the perspective of the baby boomer who may own their house in terms of they have a mortgage on it, let's say it's not paid off, or it is paid off. It doesn't really matter in terms of like what's happening in the macro picture from the 30,000-foot view of, economics here. What's going to happen to the value of homes across the board? The value of real estate probably across the board is that if something happens and the value of real estate goes down, this is something that, do you have control over that? No. Is that something that you're going to be able to plan ahead for and try to have a plan B? Yes. So does it make sense to keep your head in the sand and just continue to think, even while reality may be different, but to continue to think that my house is a store of value and always will be? Okay. Not good thinking, really, not proactive, not thinking about the future, really, if you ask me. That's strictly my opinion, but coming from a boomer, I would encourage other boomers who either have their own house with a mortgage or have their own house and it's paid off. What are you going to do? What's your plan if the value of your house goes down by 50%, 100%, 60%? What's the plan? So, have a plan B and really do the research. Is it worth doing 5 minutes or 5 hours of research? Of course it is. What else are you doing right now? You're a boomer? Are you retired? Get yourself engaged, people.
Yeah, and it's never been easier to learn stuff than it is today. Like the one thing that probably most people who are getting into Bitcoin now will find is that there's almost too much information. Like you type Bitcoin into YouTube search, like you're going to have 10,000 hours of videos to watch. So kind of the purpose of this show is going to be obviously to help people who are interested in that if they are able to find us. But we're also going to be sharing good resources that we trust. For a couple people who have been in here for, I'd say, a total of like combined maybe 8 to 10 years in Bitcoin. We're going to share the resources that we've found that we trust. And so you can start to build on top of that in addition to the show, because this is only going to be an hour and a half every week, but it requires a lot. I do want to show one thing here, Bodie, and I think that this is like the one graphic that really hits home with a lot of the baby boomers right now. Okay. So you might just have to approve my share there.
Sure. Let's see.
So even for me, this was one of the analogies within Bitcoin that really struck a chord for me. I didn't really see it this way until somebody presented it to me this way. And I think it was Jeff Booth, actually. And speaking of really good resources, Jeff Booth, if you want to get a really good understanding, he's a little bit more advanced. It takes some time. It probably took me like 10 or 15 episodes of listening to Jeff Booth to really have a click. But it was his example of real estate and the fact that his house went from, let's say, $1 million to $2.5 million in the last 5 years. He's got a beachfront house, like he does well for himself. But he said in terms of Bitcoin, it actually went down. So his house value went down in comparison to Bitcoin, but nobody sees it that way. So this is a good graphic. It says 2016, the house of a price in dollars was $288,400. The price at the time was 664 Bitcoin. That was 2016. 2024 years later, The price went up 328,900, but look at the price of Bitcoin. It went down to 45 Bitcoin for that price, for that house.
Right.
And in 2024, last year, that same house was worth 434,700 US dollars, or dollars in this case. But look at that, 6.6 Bitcoin. So you can see the trend here that's happening, even though that houses, the prices are going up. And I think that if somebody out there who's a homeowner heard this, they would understand it. Like, you did nothing to your house. Your neighborhood didn't become more valuable. The only thing that changed there was that the government printed a lot of dollars. So that's what you're seeing here. You're seeing your price of your house go up, but it didn't become more valuable. It's the same house. It just,
Right.
the government printed a bunch of money. And the Bitcoin is the truth in this. The Bitcoin is the one that measures things because it is a fixed supply. It's predictable supply. It's an accurate supply. And so that's what's kind of repricing everything right now, and including homes. So even though it went from 288,000 up to 434, everybody's feeling good. The price of my house went up. Woohoo. As you know, if you ever go to sell that house, you're going to pay that same inflation on your new house. So that's kind of the illusion, is that houses aren't becoming more valuable. The dollar is just becoming less valuable. And so that's all kind of over time going to flow into Bitcoin and be repriced by Bitcoin. But that's a very powerful, once you can kind of wrap your head around this aspect, you can kind of see the trend and you can see how this is going to play out. You know, if we were to guess, Bodie, we might say 2028, the price of a house, that house might be over 500,000, but that might be less than one Bitcoin at that time.
So for a baby boomer, right, you look at something like this, okay, anybody who's has trouble, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, I see the information and I'm having trouble clicking and having it click, okay? Take your finger or a pencil or something and put right over the US dollar amounts, the 288,000 all the way to the 434, just kind of horizontally put a finger or something over that and make that disappear. And then in order to think in terms of pricing in Bitcoin, just look at it in terms of Bitcoin. So, because that eliminates the confusion of the US dollar, because, am I going to say the US dollar is going away? No, I'm not going to say that. But I am saying, in order to kind of stretch your thinking and look at how things are priced in Bitcoin, just take the US dollars off of that chart for a second, and then you can see not what we think is happening, but what is actually going on in the market. The market speaks for itself, and Bitcoin is the most, I think Jeff Booth says it best, but it's the most, the freest kind of market that we've ever seen. We are not used to seeing through the lens of a free market. We're used to seeing through a lens of a, the controlled fiat economy, right? So when you look at those things in terms of the Bitcoin price, and you price things in Bitcoin, that's when you start to understand that prices are coming down in Bitcoin. And this is a system that we want to be in. This is not something that we want to just, be ignorant about and go like, oh, that is not for me because I listen to what the media tells me. No, do your own research. That's why we always say, do your own research. And if you do that, you invest the time in your financial future and the financial future of the future generations in your family, you're going to see some things that they're gonna jump off the page at you, or at least if you're paying attention, they should.
Right.
And it's very simple. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's there. It's right in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Once this clicks in your head of what's happening here, you're right. You can't unsee that. And I like that exercise, Bodie, of covering the price, because if you think about it, that is like a complete illusion anyways. Your house didn't go up in value. It's just the dollars that were printed made it appear as if it's worth more, but it's not. So the two things I would say to this is, if you look at the trend here, we got 664 Bitcoin 10 years ago almost, down to 45 Bitcoin per house, down to 6 Bitcoin per house. It'll probably be 1 Bitcoin per house in a couple of years, and then it'll be 0.6 of a Bitcoin. And it's just going to keep going that way. And that's not our opinion. That is, if you ask Michael Saylor, he will say he's an engineer. He's not a trader. That's what this thing is designed to do. So it's not my opinion. It's not Bodhi's opinion. That's what's going to happen. As the dollars keep going up, Bitcoin stays the same. It's very simple economics of how this thing plays out. But the other thing I would say is just do an actual exercise of take your own house. Look at, assuming you bought a house in the last decade, look at what you paid for it, and then do some comparables. What do you think it would be worth today? So let's say you paid 200,000 for it, or 300,000, and it's worth 700,000 today. To like actually go through that exercise of writing down what the cost was, what it's worth today in dollars, and then go to a website and say, what was the price at the time you purchased your house? And then figure out how many Bitcoin it was worth, and then do it today, because it'll hit you home. It'll hit you a lot harder when you see it in your own life, in your own real experience there.
Yeah. You know, I would take this graphic and go just a slightly different direction with it for just a moment too. And that is that people, they buy homes, and they encouraged home ownership as opposed to renting a home, because it has traditionally been an increasing store of value.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the dollars, Canadian, US, whatever kind of currency you're using, it would typically appreciate, and it would appreciate it because other people with lots and lots of money would put money into these things, and they would appreciate, they would inflate in value, right? Well, if we for a second go, okay, well, Bitcoin is not just a store of value. It's actually got more dimensions than that. It's actually also needs to be used as a currency. We want to trade with it. We want to use it to buy things. And that's really, that's really where kind of it's headed. But it is a store of value as well. I think Michael Saylor would say it's a capital. It's a digital capital, right?
Digital capital. Oh, what did I do here? Sorry about that.
I think you made it go away, but you can bring it back if you want to. That's fine. Whatever.
No, I think we're probably done with that, eh?
Oh yeah, sure. Absolutely. So, you might speak to this for just a second, is that the many dimensions of Bitcoin, it's like you said before, it's the Bitcoin, the digital asset, the digital capital, and it's also the digital network, or the Bitcoin network. So the Bitcoin there's two main kind of areas of Bitcoin.
Yes, that's true.
So I don't want to really confuse this for the new Bitcoiner, or for the boomer, generation, but just speak for a little bit about, the kind of like, it is, because they kind of have trouble getting their head around it. Okay. Because they can't see it, they can't touch it, which, there's many other things that we can't see and we can't touch, right? We use our banking, and, we tap the card, and you can't see or you can't touch that either. But, the money goes down in our bank account after we tap our card, that much we can see. Well, it works the same way in Bitcoin too. But speak to a little bit to the importance of it being currency, being used in an economy, even if it's just a small economy, as opposed to like store of value. Could you do that?
Yeah, and I think that this is honestly one of the most important parts for the older generation to try to understand, because most people, they see Bitcoin, and the only thing that they've really seen or heard about Bitcoin is from the news, from the media. And they have a we've had a 16-year negative marketing campaign against the media, because you have to look at who owns the media. And what do they want? Do they want a decentralized, open, transparent way to send money around the world? Probably not. And so their best interest is that this thing kind of just goes away. And they've been trying. But once you get to a point of understanding within Bitcoin that there's really nothing they can do to stop it because of its decentralization aspect to it. But without getting people too confused, don't really just see this as a currency. See this as digital capital, as Bodhi alluded to. And I think that that's where the bigger play is here. If you look at it like digital capital versus currency, because for somebody in the US, somebody in Canada, you get dollars into your bank account. They show up there. The government might take some, the bank might take some every month, But when you go to the store and you go to tap your Visa card or your debit card, it works. So there's no sense of urgency for anybody, really, never mind just the baby boomer generation, to get a new currency here, because ours, it works. People go to the store, they want to pay for things, their card works, their bank works. And so that's kind of like a component of it. But then when you actually look at the digital capital to it and the longevity here, and buying a fixed piece of like the digital landscape in a way that once you have that, and once you take custody of that, nobody can ever take that from you. And nobody can print more of it. I think that that's the key there, is that nobody can create more of it. That's the one thing that we're seeing here within our society right now, is that people who are holding their wealth, their time, their energy in the dollar system, in the fiat dollar system, they get stolen from without even knowing about it. Every time the government creates new money or takes on more debt, their time, their energy becomes less valuable than it was before that. And so when you have an asset that does the exact same thing as all those, except it doesn't have anybody who can create more of it, that's kind of the value. I think that the easiest thing for people to understand there is that there is no CEO, there's no government that controls this thing. It's on a very fixed, immutable, unchangeable schedule for the new Bitcoin that are created. And so you can accurately plan and predict your life based on something like that. It's the foundation that you need. And I want to say one more thing here, Bodhi, because I think that this is important to understand when you're thinking about Bitcoin and the dollar system. Because if you think about the dollar system, ask yourself how many US dollars are out there. That's kind of how we measure every asset right now on Earth, is what's the US dollar value of that asset or of that product or service. But ask yourself, how many US dollars are out there? And I'm sure you could type it into Google. They might come back with some answer, but really we have no idea, because we've gone 111 years since the Federal Reserve was created in 1913. And that number that they're telling us has never been audited, not one time.
Nope.
So when your whole system is built on that, is like the measurement stick for things, and that's how you value everything, and that's broken, that has a trickle-down effect into every aspect of society. Not only does it deteriorate, but again, every time they print or create new money, it devalues yours. And so the thing to really understand with Bitcoin is that there is nobody that has access to print more of it. There's no votes. There's no anything, nothing that can change this schedule now. It's like set for the next 100 years. So we know exactly how many there are today, how many there's going to be tomorrow, and how many there's going to be in 100 years from now. And when you have that, when it's that transparent and that provable, and it becomes predictable, so then you can plan things off of that. You can accurately measure things against that. So when you have a fixed piece of that capital and you hold on to that, everything else falls into that over time. So that's kind of the thing here, where dollars melt, Bitcoin appreciates in purchasing power over time because of that, because nobody has the ability to devalue yours.
Yeah. So this is really great. I love that. The the quote, and I think Matthew Cratter says this too, right? You're holding, US dollars, you're holding melting ice cubes. Think about it. You're holding melting ice cubes, and this is for the baby boomers. This is not for, all y'all who might be listening who've done this and you understand this already. The baby boomers, think about your US dollars as melting ice cubes, because that's a great analogy as to what we're talking about here, as opposed to how are you going to, let's say you're a baby boomer and you've got somebody who's like, 20s, they're your kids, they're in their 20s or their early 30s. There's no way they have an ability to buy a house. Okay. Or, get some sort of like real appreciating asset. Okay. And will real estate, appreciate or not in the future? Not barking up that tree, but I'm just saying, how are you going to help your family? Let's say that's important to you and you want to help your family. And let's say they want to buy a house. Well, in the traditional system, you're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to be able to earn enough money to do that. Unless you've got lots of money to spend. Well, most people don't. Most people are, they have a couple parents that work. They both work, or whatever the situation is. But if you buy Bitcoin, you buy an asset that over time is appreciating, And then you can then self-custody that in a careful way, in a multi-sig pattern, and get that put away in and have it be like collateral, digital collateral that's like in a safe deposit box, for example, or, I mean, let's just say you keep it somewhere. And then there's companies that are coming out with products right now that they're on the cutting edge of this, where they're going to be able to take your Bitcoin, and it's still your Bitcoin, but you're able to lend money against that Bitcoin and buy something
Yes.
that you want to buy. Okay, so it's still yours as long as you pay your debt back. You get your Bitcoin that, if we think it's going to do what we think it's going to do, it's not going to stay the same price as it was when you put it in there. And that's why you want to pay your debt back, because you get your Bitcoin back at the end of this. Let's say you put it in, it was like 100,000. What's going to happen in a few days, in a few weeks, in this year, during this bull run of 2025? And who knows how long it's going to be. But if your Bitcoin goes in and it's in this vault, let's say it goes in at 100,000, which is about what the price is now, and it comes out when you're done, and it's like, 300,000 or 500,000 or $1 million. Are you kidding me? You've never seen anything like this before. We're in territory we have no idea where it's going to go. Oh, well, Bodie, it could go downhill. It could go to, 0 or, 10,000 or something. Really? You think so? Then you haven't done your homework. You really need to do the homework. Now, I'm not kidding you. I'm not pushing back against the haters and stuff. I'm just saying, do your homework. You just do your own diligence, and you will see at the end of this that what are the chances of it going to 0? With mass adoption, with ETFs, with incoming administration that is like it's almost the writing's on the wall if you're awake and you're paying attention. What is going on here? Do your homework.
Yeah, so you look at the fixed aspect of it, and that's kind of what I was talking about there, in terms of having a fixed amount of it, and every time you buy Bitcoin, you convert your dollars into Bitcoin, you now get a finite piece of that pie. And if you think about what you can do with that, and an analogy that I love to use is, if you think about a battery, and if you think about how we add value to the world, we go to work or we start a business and sell products and services, we give value to the world, and the world gives us value back. And so how are you storing that value? That's what you have to ask yourself, because if you think about the dollar system, I compare it to like a battery from Amazon that you could buy like a 50 pack for $5. It's cheap, it's fast, it works, but it's only going to hold your energy in there for about a couple of days, and then you're going to have to replace it. And if you think about Bitcoin as like the most powerful battery, like on a work site or a construction site, that you want to put energy in there, you want to store it for a very long time, and when you need it in the future, you can tap into that. You can plug something into it and power that thing. And so the dollar system is very much like an Amazon battery, in the sense that it doesn't really do a good job of storing your time and energy, because they can print more, create more, and devalue yours. So it's a very poor store of value, the dollar, for that reason. With Bitcoin, though, think about it like the best battery that's ever existed. And when you're thinking about whether you're 20, 30, and you're looking to hold on to that for the rest of your life and access it whenever you want to, or you're 60, 70, and you want to put your life's energy, capture it in a battery, and pass that on to generations to come. You can't do that with fiat. You can't do that with bonds. You can't do that with the stock market, even real estate. I would argue that it's not going to hold the same kind of power as Bitcoin does. So think about Bitcoin like a battery. And if you're looking to store your time, your energy, and your wealth in this thing, Bitcoin is the best battery. Plus, the nice thing about this versus real estate is that you can't go to the store and buy a coffee or pay for a meal with your real estate. So that's one. But the other thing too, I think that a lot of people miss out on here is like the liquidity aspect of it. So let's say you do have real estate. Let's say that you do have a bunch of gold. Let's say that you do have a bunch of land. Those are great. Those are great stores of value. But you cannot turn around tomorrow and sell those.
Right.
Right. You
Right.
need a lawyer. You need to find a buyer locally in your market. You need to get the banks involved. There's so many moving parts there. It takes a while to even find a buyer for it. But if you want to sell your Bitcoin, you could turn around in 5 minutes and you could cash that thing out, because it's a worldwide global market for this thing. So it is the most liquid and the best store of value that has ever existed. And there's only so much of it available. So there is a little sense of urgency here. If you are somebody who's listening to this, because we're not always going to be able to trade the fake illusionary dollars that they can print out of thin air for this real pristine asset.
That's right. That's right. This isn't something this isn't something like we talked about before. There's a window. There's a window, and we're in the open window where
Yes.
you
Yep.
can trade fiat dollars, and we call them fiat dollars because they've been printed out of thin air, and they're not backed by anything since 1971. And do your homework. But you can still trade your fiat dollars for Bitcoin. But you think about so many people, Bitcoin boomers are sleeping on this, because and I say they're sleeping on this because they're going around their life like thinking everything's just fine. And well, I mean, everything's fine because they're not in a pinch. They're making ends meet. They've got everything's going to be okay for now. If we go through hyperinflation, yeah, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna sting even more than it is now. But like we keep saying, do your homework. But if you do that, you're thinking in terms of longer term instead of we've kind of been dumbed down, right? So the urgency is there now. Why? Because there's only 21 million. But you said earlier, you can sell your Bitcoin immediately.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're a boomer and you don't know this yet, let me just clue you into something. You sell your Bitcoin and you think you might be able to buy it back later.
Yeah.
Think again, because you're new to this. Okay. There's some younger people than you that have been through a couple of cycles already. And it doesn't always go that way. Yeah, there's volatility, and maybe it goes up 5 or 10,000. But you sell it at, let's say you sell it at 100,000, and you think it's going to go back below that. You don't understand what's coming. And what do I mean by that? Jor, I'm not going to ask you to read my mind, but what would I mean by what's coming? To explain to us the boomers who we don't know jack yet, but explain to us what is coming in in a minute or less.
Okay, well, I'll tell you, because I'm witnessing this myself firsthand right now, because as somebody in the comments asked if Bodhi was my dad, but my dad was a banker. He was a GM CEO of a credit union for 40 years. And so my dad retired. He didn't foresee, he retired in 2019, right before the money printer turned on. And so he worked for 40 years. He earned his pension. He went to, I think he had 3 sick days in 40 years. Like, he put in his time here. I never foresaw a day where my dad would have to worry about money ever. And I'm not saying that, they're hurting financially, but they do think about it. They should never be in a place after 40 years of working for a company with a good pension. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who can relate to this right now. People thought they were going to be at a much better spot when they retired than they are today. And the only reason that happened is because the money printer turned on. And again, going back to, what we were talking about here, every dollar that they print and that they create devalues yours. And so there's probably, again, a lot of people in this position where they worked for 30, 40, 50 years, and they thought that their pension, they would be able to ride off into the sunset. But the thing is what's going to keep happening here, Bodhi, is that those fixed pensions, those fixed amounts, whether you're getting $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 per month, that's fixed. You can no longer change that up and down. You can't work harder or anything. That's fixed. And so when everything around you is getting more and more expensive, you are effed. I know this is a family show. But you're in trouble.
Oh, wait, hold on. They give us a COLA, a 2% cost of living adjustment.
Oh, okay.
Annually. Okay.
Yeah.
But okay, you want to get technical. Let's figure in, like what's the actual inflation and stuff like that. But you're right. We're still losing. Go ahead. I cut you off.
No.
I wanted to, we'll get into this question here in a second, but the one that I got up on the screen.
So I guess like people might be listening to this and they might say, okay, I understand there's a problem. If you're at that point, you're much further ahead than most people right now. I think most people are starting to realize that there is something wrong here. They just haven't put the pieces together to figure out that everything that's wrong with society right now stems from that broken money system. Everything. You point to anything in society, any issues, try it. It all stems from the money here. And so you're thinking like, okay, well, that's good. That's cool, Jor. Like, nice speech. But like, what can I do about it? And it's like, well, the first thing I would say is take whatever assets you have that's liquid, whether that's money in like a checkings account, a savings account, maybe you have some room on your line of credit. That's where I would start. I would start with like $2,000, $5,000, $10,000. Just buy it. Like figure out how to buy it. Buying Bitcoin's the easy part here.
Right.
Buy $2,000, $5,000, $10,000. Just leave it on exchange for a little while. Hire somebody to help you, or take the time to learn it yourself, how to secure that Bitcoin and move it to yourself. But just start there. Just get some Bitcoin. That's going to be for your family. Even if it goes to zero, I think it's worth the risk based on the last 15 years of what we've seen here and what we expect going forward into this high-tech world. So just start with something. Don't overthink it. Just take what you have, free cash flow, and just buy some, because then you're going to have some skin in the game. And you're going to start paying attention. You're going to start watching YouTube. You're going to show up here every Thursday. You're going to learn how to protect that Bitcoin, but you just have to get started. Like, I'm not asking you to sell your house, refinance your house, sell your car, like you don't have to do that. Just get what you can.
Yeah.
And that's something that is actually going to be there at the end of this thing. The Bitcoin is going to be the one that is there. So
yeah,
I think that people should really take action right now, because even though we have about a 10-year gold rush here within Bitcoin, but you just have to realize that as this thing gets more and more expensive, Bodhi was just looking at the price there, and we can talk about this, but as this thing gets more and more expensive, the dollars that you're trading are going to get you much less of that fixed piece of pie there.
That's right.
And the longer you wait, the less of that fixed piece of digital pie, digital real estate, digital farmland, the less you're going to get from that, the longer you wait. And it's not even you, it's your family that's going to have less.
Well put.
Yeah.
Well put. And just a practical application here, I would just say, we've talked about this before, but let's just beat this drum. Don't just go out there and go on, some exchange or some platform that's on Facebook that you see, or that comes up on YouTube and it plays ahead of, a show that you're going to watch. You click on it and then all of a sudden you're in their universe. You're in their walled garden of what they want you to see. Okay. No. Okay. Boomers, new Bitcoiners, get yourself 3 accounts on 3 different exchanges. Okay. In the US, I'm going to speak to just the people in the US right now, because I can't speak to anything else. And that is go to River, go to river.com and get an account at that exchange. Go to Bitcoin Well and get an account on that exchange. Go to Strike in the US. Okay. Those are the 3 that, we're not, we get nothing from them for telling you this. Okay.
I'm just going to push back a little bit here, Bodhi. Sorry.
Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
I would just say, just start with 1.
Okay.
After 3, 4, 6 months, a year, then get another one, try it out, get another one after that. But
Great.
As you said there, I think that those are the 3 best options. And Bodhi, maybe just walk somebody through here of what the process is. If somebody were to go to River, Bitcoin Well, or Strike, what's the process there in terms of like, how do you get Bitcoin from them?
Okay. So let's just go down the road of let's say Strike for right now.
Hmm.
Okay. So what you're gonna expect is you're gonna download their app first of all. Or you can I think you can actually go to their website as well.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, both.
you're going to go online to strike.me, and you're going to click on log in or sign up, and they're going to ask you for your information. Okay, you've never had an account there before. They're going to ask you for your what we call KYC, or know your customer. KYC means know your customer, and that means that you're going to have to give them your name, your address,
Yeah.
probably your driver's license, your social security number, because they have reporting requirements that they have to supply to the federal government via the SEC, because this is a digital asset. It's not a security, but it is.
It's like anything though. If you wanted to get a stock
Right.
market account, like you would have to put in the exact same information as that, right? Or a
Yep.
bank account, or anything that you're buying and selling assets with. So
Yeah.
yeah, that
So,
they know who you are.
so they know who you are. They have to. They're required to know who you are, and then you input. And it's as if you feel safe doing this. I mean, obviously, if you're have an account somewhere else, then you're used to doing this, but
Mhm.
you're going to connect your bank account so that they can connect and they can wire funds directly from your bank to your account at Strike. And then once you get inside the app, you're going to have you're going to be able to buy Bitcoin, you're going to be able to sell Bitcoin, you're going to be able to send Bitcoin, and you're going to be able to receive Bitcoin. Okay, so there's basically 4 different buttons that you can click
Mhm.
inside their app, but there's more things you can do. I won't confuse you with all that, but basically, you're going to buy Bitcoin with money that you have sent to your Strike account. Then once you buy the Bitcoin, then it takes the money out of your account, and I think it takes several days in order to get that money to go in there, because uh, that's how that works. Okay. But basically, after that, then you have your Bitcoin sitting in your Strike account on that app.
Right.
And you have bought Bitcoin. You did good. Okay. You bought Bitcoin at whatever price it was. And that's always a good thing. And then comes like, what do I do now? I can't actually hold it. I can't see it. Well, you can see it on that app, but that app has legitimacy, as opposed to some that we are familiar with that don't have legitimacy, and they're not ones you'd want to do business with. So it's sitting on there, and then you want to get good, logical, and good advice from someone you trust to get that Bitcoin from that app in that account into a self-custody wallet. And that's another step that you need to learn about. But that is something that Jor and the Bitcoin Citadel can help you with. That is something that is going to be some recommendations that we're going to have. And that's something um, that is something you're going to want to help with. And if you do need help with that, you can reach out to me or reach out to Jor. We can help you, direct you to that. Um, but again, do your homework, figure out like, what does it cost? If I want to have somebody help me through that, I want to just, maybe call someone on the phone or have them walk me through that. How much is it going to cost? All this. If you have questions, reach out to Jor, reach out to me. It's fine. Put something in the comments you have questions about. This is something that a lot of people, millions of people are sleeping on. They don't know how to do this yet. Did I
Yeah.
go through that okay?
Yeah, you did great. And I think that the one thing I would add on top of that is just like, it's so easy. It's so easy. Like
Oh,
literally
yeah.
all you're going to do is create an account. You're going to send, let's use Strike. We'll keep using Strike as an example. You're going to send them a payment. They'll give you payment instruction. You go into your online banking. Maybe you connect your bank account, but you have to send them dollars.
Right.
Within Strike, you're going to be able to buy Bitcoin, converting your dollars into Bitcoin. And Bodhi, can you keep Bitcoin on there for a little while? Like, can you hold Bitcoin on Strike? Yeah. So
Yeah,
Strike's good then. I like that for beginners.
yeah, you can keep you can keep it on there for a while. It's fine. It's fine to do that. This isn't something where I think you're going to have to worry about it. Obviously you want to make sure that you protect your password and some basic things like
Right.
that, right? But you do that with anything. And then once you get to a certain level, a certain amount of Bitcoin, it's probably a good idea to move it then at that point. But that's something you would probably need help with.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I was going to say there is like you could get help, you could get somebody in the passenger seat walking you through it, but there's a ton of really good resources for free online, and it's actually incredibly easy. All you're going to be doing is pressing copy and paste. There are some intricacies in terms of like making sure that you're using a good wallet. You're putting down your recovery phrase in case anything happened to your phone. But for the most part, this would be my kind of suggestion here is just, again, get some Bitcoin. I think that's an actionable item. Just buy some, even if it's $100. Buy some on Strike, leave it there for a little while, a couple weeks, a couple months, whatever it is. Like, you're going to be safe at Strike as much as like hardcore Bitcoiners will tell you, as soon as you buy Bitcoin, get it off of the exchange or get it off of Strike. I think you're fine there for a while. Get your feet underneath you. Figure out how to download a wallet, figure out how to receive Bitcoin to it. It's very simple to do. But the one thing I would say is I do really want to, with this show with Bodhi, with Bitcoin Generations, I kind of want to take it in steps. So this is going to be like your actionable piece of today is just get some Bitcoin. And in the coming weeks, we're going to be teaching you a little about wallets, a little about how to handle your private keys. And so you'll be ready. You could hire somebody if you want it like done faster, but this is the stuff that we're going to be talking about in this, on this channel is like buying it, sending it, storing it, protecting it. And as you get further along here, that's where the money is, where you're not, buying it for the next week to sell and it goes up and down and you try to sell it, but for the next 50 years. And it is a very long process to get into a place where it's going to be there in 50 years. But that's where we want to get to with this channel eventually, where you can buy Bitcoin, you take it off the exchange, you put it into your own custody. Bitcoin's the only asset that exists that you can take true ownership of. And then you keep it there for the rest of your, generations to come. Right.
I would just point out, just kind of one of those, a scenario that I come across a couple of weeks ago was a guy that I know that owns an auto repair shop. He's trading crypto. He's on this this app, something like I mentioned before, the one that kind of pops up as you're on your YouTube feed. And he's asking me, he said, I want to go on, I want to get my Bitcoin off of there and do this thing you're talking about, Bodhi, but they want me to swap what I have and go into this other coin, and in order to get to there. So what it's just you're in their walled garden. You can't do what you want to do. You do what they want you to do. And that's not the place you want to be. You want to follow simple directions. Get yourself an account, buy yourself some Bitcoin.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
And I see Jesus here. I don't know if this is like a Coinbase bot or something that's happening in the chat right now, but he's really trying to push people into Coinbase and Binance. And I would say that I've used Coinbase and Binance before, and they are not your best option there. And the last comment here was that no one's the companies you're mentioning, no one's ever heard of. I mean, I don't know if that's true at all. I'd say that Strike is probably one of the more credible exchanges in the space, and River and Bitcoin. Well, Brian Armstrong's burner account. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make any
Jesus
sense.
For a second here. This comment is a bit of a got a little bit of pride going there, Jesus.
I don't think that's a real person, honestly. So I don't think we even entertain it. I would honestly, like Coinbase, crypto.com, Binance, they're the Kraken. They're kind of the exchanges that most people flock into because that's who pays the big bucks for the ads and for the arena names and stuff like that. But like, if they're paying that for the arena sponsorship, who do you think's paying it? Your fees are going to pay that. So use an account, get more sats, get Strike, get Ginger says Bitcoin Well. That's my favorite exchange too. Except the one thing I would say about Bitcoin Well, they have the cheapest fees. I mean, Strike has good if you're DCAing. I think it's zero fees actually.
Yep.
But Bitcoin, well, I think for the most part has the lowest fees, but you can't actually buy Bitcoin and hold it with Bitcoin. Well, they don't let you hold Bitcoin with them. So if you're somebody who's brand new into Bitcoin, I probably wouldn't start with Bitcoin well, because it's just, you don't need that headache. You should just go at this thing, put what you can into it, hold it on the exchange for a little while. Like, again, a couple months maximum.
Yeah.
And you should be taking actionable steps to take self-custody of that. But again, if you're just getting into this, I think that Strike is probably your best option.
Yeah, I've had good experience. I'm only mentioning Swim. You can get one. I've had good experience with River. I've had good experience with Strike. As far as learning, you can go to River. They have an excellent learning
Yes, they do.
page in there, and it's a lot more surprising than you would think. It's very good. And so, it's anything with financial. I mean, look, you're not going to find financial advisors who get paid on the amount of money you invest with them that are going to say invest in Bitcoin publicly,
right?
Because they don't get paid commission on investing in Bitcoin.
Right, exactly.
You cut out that middleman, people.
No, that's a great point though, Bodie. And I mean, you always have to look at people's agenda. You always have to look at people's incentives. And here's the thing. If we're talking about Bitcoin generations here, I really want people to understand this part of it. If we're talking about Bitcoin generations here, this is going to be an asset that you buy, you hold, you learn how to hold that. If you need help, you can pay somebody. It's a key component to this. But you want to get into a part where you can actually, in 50 years from now, you're going to be able to access that Bitcoin, A. But B, the nice thing about Bitcoin is that once you buy it, once you get it set up, once you learn how to protect it, once you send it there, you're not paying an annual fee to anybody.
Right.
And that's why financial advisors hate this, because they don't make any money off you. It's not an ongoing thing for them. So if you compare that to real estate, whereas if you had $1 million and you're like, I want to protect this $1 million, I'm going to buy a house or a building. You can't just like buy it and then just, you got to worry about fires. You got to worry about floods. You got to worry about people breaking into it. You got to worry about insurance. You got to worry about property taxes. There's no other asset that you can just buy, take ownership of, and never have to pay anybody a fee again. That's what the battery that I was talking about there is. There's no leaks to it. There's no fees. There's no property tax. There's nothing. You put it there, it's there forever, and it doesn't leak.
So it's really great, because if you think about it, on the front end, you don't need a financial advisor to take a cut or a percentage of this in the beginning or during, and at the end, it's in cold storage. And if you do it right, and we've had conversations about a way to do that correctly, which we're moving towards the super backed solution. You're looking at bank level security. So it doesn't get much better than that. You don't have to pay commission. You don't have to pay ongoing fees. And you don't have to pay for, you do have to pay for, a very bank level secured solution. Right.
You don't have to. You don't have to. But if you wanted to be like,
okay. Fair.
Again, I would say that, like, especially when you're first getting started, like take like a percentage of it and invest in your security over time. And you're absolutely right. Like, this is something you want to take seriously in terms of like securing it like a bank. But you could also buy $100 worth of Bitcoin. You could send it to a wallet that could sit there for 50 years. Who knows what it might buy a whole block in 50 years. And you don't have to pay anybody. You don't have to. You can. And we advise people to. But you don't have to. That's a key. There's no property tax. There's no fees. There's no management fees. There's nothing. There's no leaks.
Yeah. So let's just like for giggles here. Let's just say we got somebody who watches this. It's like, look, I've got a large chunk of change that I want to put into Bitcoin, and I want to do it the right way. Just should they, and let's say they've done enough research to know that they don't know everything. They need to. Why would they want to maybe contact you instead of contacting some of the ones that are sponsoring some of these other shows. Let's just start there for a second, because I think, legitimacy, and, I think it's important, but Jor, I'm going to toot your horn for a second, and I'm going to say that you have not wavered one iota since I first started listening to you. And that is in terms of your integrity, the advice you give. Do not, there's certain things, stay in the guardrails. There's things that you don't want to do, Bitcoiners, and there's definitely things that you do want to do. You're not trying to toot your own horn, but I will. So give us an idea of what kind of things that you would suggest that somebody do, that they have a chunk of change and they're a boomer and they don't want to mess around. Let's get this right the first time.
Yeah, I think that you kind of have two options here. You have two routes, and I actually want to start with Charlie's comment in the chat here. Maybe pull that up, Bodhi, okay. The last one there, Caleb and Brown. This is what I would say to somebody who has a significant, maybe like $20,000 plus that you want to allocate to Bitcoin. And everybody's different. There's no certain amount of Bitcoin that you need. There's no target that you want to get to. It's just your level of risk and your confidence and knowledge in Bitcoin. So $20,000 might be less than a percentage of some people's portfolio. So in that case, you might want to bump it up to like 2, 3, 5%. But anyways, let's start with 20K. If you're putting more than $20,000 US into Bitcoin right off the hop and you know nothing, I would strongly consider using somebody like Caleb and Brown, where they actually, it's very similar to like the traditional market. You actually get your own financial advisor. They can help you with the whole process. They'll help you with sending them the money. They'll help you with sending you the Bitcoin once it's been purchased. You can actually leave it there with them for a while. You pay a little bit higher fee, of course, but that's what comes with it. It's a white glove type of service. Okay. So what I would say is, if you are somebody, again, who's going to be putting like $20,000 and above that, just shoot me an email. I'll put you in touch with somebody at Caleb and Brown. I think you get a little cut on the rate there, which in Bitcoin terms actually helps quite a bit. Yeah. So again, if you got $20,000 or more, you buy it with Caleb and Brown, reach out to me. I'll put you in touch with somebody there. You can leave it there for as long as you want. As Charlie said here, they use a third-party Fireblocks to store the Bitcoin and crypto, and it is incredibly secure. They've been around for over 10 years now, I think, and that's the kind of stuff you want to be looking at in terms of Bitcoin, your trust factor. Look at how long people have been in this space for. So that's what I would say to that is use Caleb and Brown, just keep it there for a little while. And then when you go to move it, somebody at Caleb and Brown will help you through that process, or you can reach out to somebody like me to help you with it. But, you have a lot of time. You're buying yourself a lot of time. With Fireblocks, it's a very good place to store that Bitcoin for a while. In the meantime, eventually, again, you want to get that into your own self-custody, but that's, you can take your time with that. If you're looking to buy like 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, I would use like Strike. I would, again, leave it there for a little while until you kind of have your feet underneath you in terms of, what you're doing. You have a wallet. And then so you buy it, you hold on Strike for a little while. You take some time or money. You have to invest either time or money with this to learn how to secure it. So you can watch some YouTube videos. You can figure out how to send it to your own wallet, how to store your wallet, or you hire somebody to help you with that. So those are the kind of the two routes that I would say. I would actually, as much as I love Bitcoin Well, I would not advise anybody to buy at Bitcoin Well to start, because you have to have your own wallet. You have to have everything set up before you can buy Bitcoin from them.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. That's great. Sometimes I forget about this stuff, but I would say in the Bitcoin space, if you haven't been in the Bitcoin space for very long in your baby boomer, it's just like, it's not that big of a community. It's fairly small, if you will. I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to go there on how big it is, but if you have somebody that's a bad actor and they are not doing, in terms of a fiduciary responsibility, if they're not doing something that they're obligated to do, and we've seen in the news some of this bad news that's come out and things like that. So there's plenty of that, but this is a shout out to Caleb and Brown. Now, I remember back in, I think 2021, I was listening to Bitcoin Ben, and Bitcoin Ben was talking about Caleb and Brown. Mm-hmm. And he was like, you need to Caleb and Brown. Well, I contacted them and I started to get an account with them, but I was running a business and I didn't have time to do that. And so, uh, my point is that for you to mention and for those people in the chat to mention Caleb and Brown,
Yeah.
after this much time has gone by, they must have a sterling reputation because people are still talking highly about them.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that's a great point, Bodie. I mean, that's the one thing to keep in mind here if you are somebody who's just getting into Bitcoin, is like you're going to, in your Bitcoin journey, you're going to come across a lot of people, a lot of videos, a lot of content, a lot of different Bitcoiners. They're going to be telling you all these different things. And what you kind of have to do with yourself is you have to trust your gut for sure. That's the most important part, but also verify. That's a big part of Bitcoin, is that we no longer have to trust the Federal Reserve. We no longer have to trust our governments. We can now verify that our Bitcoin is in fact there. And it's the same kind of thing. You should take every approach to that. You should verify whether somebody sends you an email looking for this information. You should verify that email. That's the first thing that you should do. And if somebody tells you something like, who is in the chat here talking about Binance or Coinbase, if somebody says that, you're like, okay, that sounds good. You should go somewhere else. And if somebody else says go to Coinbase or Binance, then that's 2 points of verification, 2 people within your network that have verified that. So in this case, I would say Bodie, myself, Charlie Dunn in the chat, Bitcoin Ben, who's been around for 4 or 5 or plus years. That's 4 points of contact. I've used them myself. They are great. I bought Bitcoin with them. I bought other cryptocurrency with them back in my crypto days, and they will keep it. They will send it to you whenever you want to. You can call them, you can email them. So that's kind of that's a good point in terms of like verifying the information that you take in. But I just want to say one more thing about Ginger here. He said, George, 365-day course is probably a great decision for people who are watching this. That's something I started doing in 2025. So I've been doing 1 Bitcoin video per day for 5, 10, 15 minutes long, covering different topics. Here's the list. I'll give you guys a little preview of this is what it looks like. So there's a lot of stuff on there, a lot of topics to cover. But
nice.
The point, I didn't really want to I didn't want to promote it. But the one thing I will say about that is that the reason I'm doing it, a 365-day course, is because I understand that you cannot learn Bitcoin in a 2-hour video. You cannot learn Bitcoin in a couple-week course. This is a very long-term process. There's so many different moving parts to this. There's so many different aspects and components to it. It takes a very long time. I've been here for almost 5 years now, I think, and there's still there's so much that I don't know, and every day I learn something new. So this whole thing is a journey. That's why I called my show the Bitcoin Journey, because there's no destination here. You just kind of have to understand that there's a problem, take action, and then learn how to secure that.
That's right. That's right. And here, I'll just kind of, I guess, toot our horns here for a second. Like my background is as a public servant. I was a fireman for a long time. Learned strong work ethic from some real salty dogs back in the day in the early 80s. I came across Jor about a little over a year ago, started listening to his show and learned a lot, and slowly started kind of interacting more and became active in the Living in the Future community, which is a Signal chat that we have, and learned a ton from everybody in there. And just so shout out to Letha and Craig and Daniel, and you all know who you are in that community, and just
Ginger.
Thank you so much. But and thanks for Jordan putting all that together. But over time, you see, my wife has this saying, over time and track record, you learn how people are and whether or not you can trust who they are and what they're all about. Well, I think that's the case, and I would like to think that I'm honest enough about it to kind of like say when I don't know something, and I think Jor's very upfront about that too, and and this isn't some high powered YouTube channel where we're like super professionals and we have a staff that does all the production and stuff. No, we do this live because we're passionate about doing this, and we want to bring quality actionable information to new Bitcoiners and to baby boomers and stuff. So that is something that we have a little bit of credibility. I mean, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I'm just saying, but we also have the ability to call bullshit when we see it too. And, he's not afraid to do that to me. I'm not afraid to do that to him. And, I think we're both better for it, so thank you for that. Like kind of holding each other accountable to that. But, we're kind of getting close to
Mhm.
the end. Is there any comments that we want to get to or anything that we've missed?
Um, yeah, I got to run here in about a couple minutes or less. So, yeah, there's a lot of good chats in here today. Unfortunately, we didn't have a lot of questions. There was a lot of comments, a lot of, but this is part of it too. Like, looking back on my channel and kind of why I think that people keep showing up there is because it is live. We do interact with the chat. We do either call out BS in the chat or we answer, or people call us out too. That's the thing I love about it, is like there's no way to hide here. There's no edits. There's no fancy graphic and music and stuff. It's you say something on the internet, it lives there forever. And if I'm wrong about that, or if I misspoke, then the people in the chat will call me out. And I'm totally okay with that. I think that that's how it should be. I think that the world's really moved. We're moving into a more decentralized world, a more, less scripted, less like illusionary. People resonate with people, not, with a screen. And I think that they hopefully can sense that through here of what we're trying to do. And I think that the live chat aspect of this just kind of goes, it aligns with that to me.
Yeah. So so we're on the journey here. I can't encourage you guys enough to check out the 365 videos. That is, Jory, you provide value, and it's way more worth than what you're charging for it. And that is that is something that we all need to, and anybody who says that they are such an expert on Bitcoin, they know all about it. I mean, I think they're blowing smoke. There is so much to learn. Can you imagine if in the first few years of the internet, everybody was like, yeah, I know everything about the internet, and I mean, no, you don't.
Yeah,
Just
I
be
think
honest,
no, and you're right. And I think that that's one thing, and maybe this is where I want to leave it today, is just kind of understand that Bitcoin is only 16 years old. There's a lot of bad actors in the space. There's a lot of like complete scammers in the space. You do have to have your guard up. This is very much unlike the old system where you pay fees and insurance and you let somebody else handle things for you. This is your responsibility. You cut out the middleman. You don't pay the fees, but this is all on you. And so I would say that like after 16 years, we've come quite a long ways. And I think a lot further ahead than a lot of people would have thought in the early days this fast. But you have to keep that in mind. And I would encourage everybody to start, just go and do a simple Google search. Look at gold versus Bitcoin. Look at real estate versus Bitcoin. And what you're going to see is going to be a very eye-opening experience for you. And it's going to basically all of these different charts, all of these different comparisons, Bitcoin versus this, Bitcoin versus that, they're all in Bitcoin's favor. And if you understand the world of technology that we're moving into, this thing isn't going anywhere. In fact, it's going to, we're at the very bottom of the S curve here. But the one thing that they have against Bitcoin in every single graphic is historical data. But the only way that you earn that is with time. And Bitcoin hasn't missed a block in 15 years now. There's no indication that it's going to. And so if that's the only thing holding this asset back, it's kind of up to you. Do you want to take that risk, or do you want to wait for somebody to tell you that this thing is safe? So again, you don't have to allocate your whole portfolio. Just start very small, take it very slow. Don't get too far ahead of your skis. And if you need anything, if you have any questions, like me and Bodhi are both more than happy to help with anything.
Yeah, we'll do the best we can. There's only so many hours in the day, and we both got
True.
families, but
True.
I mean, the interest is there. I would just, I'd like to just, shout out to, everybody who's in the space, who's working hard, who's trying to stack sats with humility and being honest. I mean, I have met some really amazing people, in this space, and not really have a lot of people to talk to about it, in my daily, journey that I, on my circles right here in social circles where I live. So I really appreciate all the knowledge that I've learned, and you know, and just encourage more people to do that. So anyway, Jor, thanks again. It's been great being with you on Bitcoin Generations. Let's
my friend.
let's
I want to say a special shout out to Spaceman. He zapped us 420 sats too. And you know, as the show progresses, you're going to see things like Zapstream. You're going to hear about things like Zaps and sending money around. Like, we haven't even scratched the surface in terms of what this asset does. We're just kind of like starting with the bare bones of it. But the capabilities are endless. And really the only cap on Bitcoin going forward is our own imagination. And we've lived in a control manipulated system our entire lives. And Bitcoin is what breaks us out of that system. So it's exciting. It's very exciting. And that's, I mean, nobody's paying me and you to be here right now. So it's just a passion thing, and want to push this thing forward. Very passionate.
All right, sir. It's great seeing you again, and I will talk to you very soon, or I'll be listening to you tomorrow. And the Bitcoin Amigos on Fridays at what time are the Bitcoin Amigos on Fridays? 4 Eastern?
4 o'clock, 4 p.m. Eastern time. Okay. I mean, it'll be different. It's a different dynamic than this. This is more like I mean, it's similar in a way, but it's just fun. But this is fun too. This is a little bit more like day early on in the journey. Right. Bitcoin Amigos is a little bit more advanced. But the other thing too, is you go through this, the one thing I would encourage people to do is, you know, make yourself a little bit uncomfortable. I remember when I was first learning about Bitcoin, I'd be listening to podcasts for 2 or 3 hours. I understood maybe one out of 100 words that they were saying, but I did it. And the next time I heard it, I kind of connected a dot. And then I was like, okay, well, this is starting to make a little bit more sense. Yeah. But definitely make yourself uncomfortable, challenge yourself. And we're going to do okay. Bitcoin absolutely is hope for the future for every generation. And we're very lucky to be alive at this time, because people in 50 years from now would kill to be where we are right now in Bitcoin's history and getting the amount of sats that we can get.
You know, I'm gonna ask you this on the fly. You didn't know I was gonna ask you this, but is there a way that I could play one of the Bitcoin Amigos songs? Is there a way that I could do that?
Oh, yeah, we could do that. Which one do you want to hear?
I want to play the Ballad of Satoshi.
Oh, that's a good song.
The country western one. Yeah. Can we do that?
Yep. I would. So I think that we might have to test this. I'm not sure what it's going to be like from your perspective here, but we'll give it a shot. We'll see. I mean, if it fails, then sorry, but
I think I might be able to do it. I can.
Oh yeah, you should be able to actually, Bodie. Let me try. So if you go to present,
okay.
In StreamYard, we're going to walk this through everybody on the fly. So the show's over, by the way. If you're done with us, you can leave. But if you want to hear a really good song about Bitcoin, stick around for 1 or 2 minutes here. We'll get this thing sorted out. It'll be worth your time, I promise.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't.
So go to YouTube, type in the Ballad of Satoshi.
Okay.
And I'll put it on my phone here so we can make sure that we can hear it before we get too far into it.
Okay. Oh, here it is.
So you found the video?
Yeah, it came right up.
Okay.
Hold on a second.
So it's a great one. Now you go to present.
Okay.
And I don't know what the tabs are called at the top, but you want to click the left side one, whatever that is. It's not like the full screen. It's the one on the left side. Tab.
I got it. Yep. Okay. I got it right here. Here we go. You ready? Okay. Here we go, folks. This is Ballad of Satoshi.
He rode into town, a stranger unknown, where warlord Dollar sat high on his throne. The people were broken, their freedom denied, but Satoshi spoke truth and their hearts came alive. Oh, Satoshi, bold and true, filled with hope, a dream come true. His Bitcoin invention code filled with grace, a hero selfless, leaving no trace. Dollar laughed loud, he's nothing to fear. But the people grew strong as Satoshi drew near. They rose up together with Bitcoin in hand, and the dark days of dollar could no longer stand. Oh, Satoshi, bold and true, filled with hope, a dream come true. His Bitcoin invention code filled with grace, a hero selfless, leaving no trace. The battle was fierce, but the people fought on. With Satoshi's creation, the tyrant was gone. The town was set free, their chains cast aside, and finally in their hearts, hope and freedom were alive. Oh, Satoshi, bold and true, filled with hope, a dream come true. His Bitcoin invention code filled with grace, a hero selfless, leaving no trace. He left them with Bitcoin, their future to claim, and rode off in silence, no need for fame. The legend of Satoshi will forever remain.
Nice work, Bodie. Oh, you're on mute. Or am I?
I'm
mute?
learning. I'm learning
there
how
you
to do the thing here, but
You got to figure it out.
yeah. Well, it's great being with you. I'm going to go ahead and sign off. We're going to end the live stream now. Thanks everyone for being here. Thanks, Jor.
Yep. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for having me, Bodie. And thanks to everybody who sent in some zaps today. We very much appreciate it. So we'll
much.
see you right around this time next week.
Yes, sir. Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern time.